Welcome back to Jface Games. We're talking about TTRPGs, design, and we get inspiration from other games. We get inspiration from other role-playing games that we kind of evaluate here, but we also get inspiration from board games. And what you're looking at here next to me, all of this over here, is a game called Jaipur. And Jaipur is a two-player card game that is classic two-player card game. One of the best card games I've ever played, probably. I really enjoy it. It's really fun, really tactical, and whoops, I'm not going to zoom in on things, but we're going to talk about right now. And there's one main mechanic that I want to talk about. There's one main mechanic that I want to get to, but I got to explain the game first before we get that game. So this is a set collection game that sometimes feels like a race, and you have a certain amount of tokens that are available, and that's all these tokens over here. And they're worth a certain amount of points, and you turn in these sets of cards. You're trying to get sets, so this person has 5 browns here, and if they turned in these 5 browns, they would get 5 brown tokens, right? And so they're trying to randomly, or not randomly, they're trying to get sets of cards and turn in those sets of cards to get tokens. These tokens are, that's it. These are all the tokens available, okay? There's no more. And there's a design flaw in this picture. This picture does not show something accurately. What this picture does not show accurately is that you can see here that every red is a 7, every gold is a 6, every purple is a 3. That is wrong. In the actual game, this is a 3, this is maybe a 3, but this becomes a 2, 2, 1, 1, 1. So these start to get less the lower you get in the stack, right? And that's important. That's important because it means that if I can get out cards earlier than my opponent, I can get the big card in the front, or the big coin in front. And that becomes part of that race aspect, right? Do I wait and get a set and try and get a bunch of tokens at once? Because if I get a bunch of tokens, you see these here, these are variable amounts of points that you get for having sets of 5, sets of 4, sets of 3. Do I wait and try and get a big set, or do I just steal the highest one that's in the front? And that happens sometimes, right? So you're trying to get these sets, and you're trying to get these sets out, and you're trying to get coins for these sets, right? But how do you actually, and the game ends when 3 of these rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 of those rows are gone, okay? Now, there are 3 things you can do on your turn, right? Well, I should say there's 4 things you can do on your turn. One thing is to turn in cards and turn in a set and buy tokens. That's one thing, right? So you're selling goods to get coin. That's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do on your turn is you can pick up cards, but there's a couple different ways you pick up cards. One way of picking up a card is you would just grab whatever one card you want, put in your hand, and then you replace that portion of the row with a card from the Jaipur deck. That's one way of getting a card. The second way of getting a card is picking up as many cards as you want, right? So I could pick up this red and this red because that would be really good. I already have a red, but I have to replace it. If I'm picking up more than one card, I have to replace from my hand those cards. Or I can replace from my stack of camels. You have this stack of camels here. And what happens is, say I wanted to pick up this red and this red, I could pick up this one and put my purple down, and then I could put this red, pick up this red, and I could put one of the camels here. Or I could put 2 camels out and keep all my cards, and I have extra reds, right? So these camels are incredibly valuable, right? The third thing I can do, and this is the kicker, this is these camels, the spoiler, we're here to talk about camels, folks. These camels, if there's a bunch of camels out here, or if there's even one camel, anywhere from 1 to 5 camels out here, the third card pickup style I can do is I can pick up all the camels and then replace all those camels with cards from this deck, okay? So that's the third thing. So I can either take one card and resupply it from the deck. I can take multiple cards, but I have to dish out from my hand or from my stack of camels, or I can pick up all the camels available. So what you see here are the camels offer you a ton of flexibility. If you have camels, you can make more interesting turns. You can take the cards you want and keep your cards, but you have to have camels to have this flexibility. However, in order to get a lot of camels, you have to be willing to allow the player the opportunity at first look at a lot of cards potentially. And this is a risk, right? This is where you get into some fun game mechanics of trying to tempt your opponent into taking all the camels when you need just one more card, right? Say I have 2 reds and I want 3 reds because then I'm going to get a potential extra draw or extra token. So I want another red card to come out. So I need the player potentially, and the red cards, there are not as many in the deck. So the more cards they pick up on their turn, the more chance I'm going to see something good, right? So now I'm tempting them to pick up a card so that I can make, so that I can get the card I want. And I absolutely love the feeling you get when making these decisions in this game. This to me is where the real tension exists, is this camel play. So how do you translate this concept into like a TTRPG? The idea that I can gain flexibility in my options, gain a resource that allows me to have flexibility potentially, but by doing so, I'm giving my opponent a potential opportunity to get what they need. Fate does this to a degree. They have the mechanic that involves fate points. You as a player can use the fate points to get a bonus to rolls or to change things in the scene or environment. And also in order to get them, you have to be like, so one of the things is you might have to be compelled by the GM, but that just adds the complications to you, right? This is somewhat close to this idea, right? You're giving the GM something by being compelled and you're getting the resource, but it's not the same, not 100% the same. I could see something where as you do something as a player, you change the die that the GM has. Maybe the GM has some sort of die, and they get to roll that die at the start of their turn. If they get something like a 1 or a 2 on like the roll of a 1 or a 2, something happens, right? So maybe they start with a D10. The GM has a D10 in front of them. As you do something, right? As you do something, you're like, you know what? I'm going to take this flexibility. I want this ability. That D10 becomes D8, right? And each point you attain, the die steps down. So now your buddy goes, and now he's going to want to do something as well. So they do something to add flexibility to their character. So now that D8 becomes D6. And everyone's like, don't you want to do anything? Because the start of the DM's turn, he rolls it. And if he gets a 1 or a 2, you know, the progress clock ticks if it's like Forged in the Dark. Or it's like a recharge ability for 5th edition. Like now anytime they roll a 1 or 2, the big bad gets a recharge, right? So maybe that, because it's not a guarantee, right? You are getting flexibility, not at a guarantee your opponent is getting something they want, but at the potential increased chance they do. So the points you get as a player need to be tempting, but they can't be game breaking. I'd love to say max damage or auto success with an attack or a skill check, but your game would have to like have no spike damage for that to occur, right? Because if you've got spike damage and you're able to do auto max damage and auto success, that's a problem. You couldn't tee that up for some sort of like backstab or something. That would be bad. So maybe it's closer to like a bardic inspiration. Maybe that's tempting enough. You have a die that allows you to do extra potential chance of an attack or damage. But once again, I'm not sure if that's sexy enough for your game to be something that gives you flexibility. So you get to have this die, maybe. Yeah, maybe. All right. Anyways, that's the idea here. It's this idea of you gain flexibility as a player, but your DM then gains potential success in something or some big reward. Or it could be vice versa. You know, you could flip that around because in this game, it's a 2-player game and those camels add that flexibility both ways. So anyways, I don't want to ramble too much more. Jaipur, I love this game. I love those damn camels. There's so much good decision making there. So check it out and hit the bell, hit the subscribe button, and leave some comments because I want to hear what you're saying. And it helps the algorithm, I think. I hear some people say, so do it up.